and welcome to Business Today Television. You're watching our continuing coverage of the Lok Sabha verdict, the big verdict of 2024. And what a session it's been on the markets today. Deep cuts and a sea of red as investors digest the fact that the Bharatiya Janata Party on its own is not at 272, although the NDA at around 300. And all manner of speculation weighing heavily on the markets with regard to the future of governance and policy making. We've been decoding the markets all day today, and now we turn our attention to the macro, to the policy, and to the likely impact of a diminished mandate for Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the fact that there is a resurgent opposition, including the Congress, that has done well beyond many expectations in the Lok Sabha. And joining us now are Gopalan, former Secretary of the Department of Economic Affairs in the Ministry of Finance, Prof Arun Kumar, an author and former Professor of Economics at JNU. We are also joined by Rajeev Mantri, author and well-known venture capital investor and commentator on macro and micro matters. And as I go to my guests and my colleague Karishma Sudani as well, I just want to bring up one point that with the NDA seat share of, let's say, 295 as we see on the screen, what is likely to happen with some of the policy priorities? And even as we discuss what the NDA, because as of now it seems that the NDA is going to form the next government, but let's also reflect on what were the promises that the India Alliance and mainly the Congress had made, which seem to have influenced voting patterns. And joining me on that is Karishma Sudani, my colleague who tracks the finance ministry. Karishma, you and Chetan Bhutani had done the maths on the cost of the Congress manifesto and very significant numbers that were mentioned there, including 4.5 lakh crore or thereabouts only on the scheme to give 1 lakh rupees to women. Can you help put in perspective, before I go to our experts, as to the fiscal cost and impact of the Congress India Alliance manifesto that we had seen? Karishma.
So that rightly mentioned by you. In fact, we spoke to a couple of economists in the past few days, and most of them, majority of them, had a lopsided view on this. You see, when both the manifestos were out, a couple of economists did share that while the BJP manifesto really focuses on policy continuity because they've been there for 10 years, Congress manifesto prioritized populism to such an extent that they've ignored what could go on the fiscal math side. And a couple of economists that I've spoken to me have shared that if Congress has, if it's going to be Congress that is going to be taking over through its India Alliance, then there is going to be a big problem with the fiscal deficit widening to almost somewhere between 7 to 8.5% of what they've promised. One number that you've already given, Siddharth, is about 4 lakh crore for about 1 to 2 lakh per year that Rahul Gandhi has promised to each poor family. But besides this, couple of other social schemes that he did promise was about increasing wages for Manrega, about cost of 30 lakh government jobs, which could have an implication of about 1.4 lakh crore, a demand, and also what could be impacted on a broader scale through this is about 22 lakh crore annually that could that the Congress government will have to shell on this. Now, so that let's understand that there are also some practical elements to this. While I think the party has hit the right chords in terms of trying and addressing populism and getting financial support to people, but the big question is if this could be practically done, because government in last few years, at least the government that has been in power, was continuously focusing on maintaining its fiscal deficit, on focusing on making India as one of the third largest economy, and this completely goes the opposite way.
Well, viewers, why did we bring you those numbers and those graphics, the mathematics of the manifesto? We are not implying anywhere that the NDA is not coming to power. No one's calling the election, and certainly not us here at Business Today Television. We are just trying to put into context what seems to have weighed very heavily on markets all through the day today after that spectacular rise that we had seen on account of the exit polls. And this is a worst case scenario that Karishma has brought us. Karishma, thank you very much. I go to Mr. Gopalan right away. Mr. Gopalan, this kind of verdict and your many years in government where you have seen governments go and come at both the center and state levels, how would it weigh as far as the broader economy and policy priorities are concerned? The return of the NDA but with a diminished mandate.
You asked me,
Yes, Mr. Gopalan, that question was for you, sir.
Well, with a coalition, NDA will have some difficulty in implementing some of the reforms they promised or they would carry out, as we all thought that they would carry out in the future, especially on land labor and those kind of things. There could be problems. But if NDA, when the NDA forms on, there will certainly be a priority on the macro stability. How Mr. Chandrababu Naidu come in the way of that is something we'll have to watch as we go along. There will be reforms which we have had in the financial sector and other sector reforms. They will certainly, go forward, barring the land and labor. That will be stalled for the time being. Then public capex will certainly go up. It's not going to go down, subject to ability of the bandwidth of execution capabilities. We have got, outside conditions of China plus one is there, which will get us enough, investment. But more than anything else, I think the India government will focus on how to ensure that the private investment really, goes through skills development, getting conditions right for manufacturing and those kind of things. And also, now that they also feel that part of the problem has been due to mehengai as well as on the joblessness, I think they will definitely face this problem very squarely and take it forward as we go.
All right. Before I go to Professor Arun Kumar, I want to bring in Rajeev Mantri. Rajeev, a reversal in sentiment clearly, but will there be a reversal in fundamentals when it comes to the policy priorities and the consequent impact on the markets? The markets have clearly been witnessed the worst loss that we have seen in recent memory, Rajeev.
Yesterday, and then there's a disappointment today. But in my view, there will be more continuity than change. So let's wait and see what configuration emerges. What appears clear is that the BJP will be forming the government, and who its partners are, and so on, could marginally change things. But I expect that the direction will not be shifted too much.
Okay, so you tinkering at the margins, but the core thrust of Modinomics is what Rajeev Mantri seemed.
I don't think so. So it's clear that the BJP will be the leading party in the coalition. It's clear that it is the single largest party. So whatever policies that are put out by BJP, which have been implemented, and what we've seen in the last 10 years, most of that will continue. And the economic side, I would think that practically all of it will continue. And I don't anticipate too many changes.
Professor Arun Kumar, how do you see the verdict from an economics point of view? Is this all the major economic issues at play here, or was it some of the traditional political arithmetic that has given us this kind of result?
I think what's happened is that there was exuberance given the polls that we had, the exit polls. I don't believe in exit polls because typically they turn out to be incorrect, given that India has a very complex political structure is not a two-party structure, unlike in UK and USA, where there's greater certainty. Secondly, I've always found that people don't tell the truth when the polls are done. So therefore, we don't get the full picture because people are scared. And I think people did not speak out when the exit polls were done. So after the exit polls, when there was exuberance, suddenly now you see the result that all the exit polls are incorrect, and therefore, the BJP may not get a majority on its own. Then there's a decline in the sentiment in the market. So that's why the market has gone up and gone down in a record way. The question arises, what is the political message? Because after all, elections are all about political messaging. The political messaging that will be there for the BJP is that their original agenda of charts of power, that is not being fulfilled. The confidence that came out of not the economic performance, but I think the social and the political, things that they were doing in terms of the Ram Janmabhoomi and the various other things that they thought would pay dividends. So in a sense, those haven't paid dividends. And what the opposition finds is that it has paid dividend when they raise the issue of unemployment, of farmers' incomes and workers' situation and so on. So I think the lesson for both, the opposition will continue with its agenda on the economic front. The BJP will have to shift its agenda where it will have to address the issue of unemployment, issue of their farmers' incomes and the unorganized sector decline and things like that. So I think the BJP's agenda is going to shift, and the opposition will come back very strongly on these issues and pressurize the government to do something on it. So from both sides, there'll be pressure for change in policies, where I think now much greater care would have to be taken. The second thing is that the government not having a majority on its own would depend on the allies. And allies may not go with the agenda of the BJP, and therefore BJP may have to adjust the agenda. We saw during NDA when Vajpayee had come that Vajpayee had to give up some of the core agenda of the BJP, and because the allies were there. So here also, I think there'll be shift in economic policies that I can see, even if BJP forms a government with the alliance that it has with the NDA.
Good point there, Professor Kumar, a shift. And that shift I want to capture, and I'll request my producers to go full frame on a graphic that we have prepared for you. This is Bernstein analysis and estimates, and this is very, very illuminating at this stage of the result tally day today. If you see what the Bernstein graphic, what is their view? NDA less than 270 seats is one projection, but a NDA 290, 340 seats, and let's stay with that graphic for a moment. What does it say? It says as far as infrastructure is concerned, and they have sort of done an analysis across 6 sectors, it says that government may, as a scenario, slow down on capex and leave space for private sector investment. Announcement of new projects likely to be slow. This is the 290 to 340 projection before the actual results. I emphasize that, viewers. For consumption, they say a gradual recovery in rural consumption, likely to stay weak near term. Some incentives may be announced in the budget. For manufacturing, Make in India, PLI schemes that we saw, existing schemes likely to continue, but a slowdown of the infusion of funds into new schemes. Question mark that I am posing is what happens to FDI and even FII investment. Inflation, that is a given that it will sort to be controlled. Fiscal deficit, the possibility of a fiscal deficit that is likely to remain and lie into 4.5%, and of course the market implications that we have seen play out during the day. Mr. Gopalan, I am coming to you. Would you agree with this, at least on the infrastructure capex bit, that some bit of shift in terms of spending priorities is likely to occur with NDA 3.0?
Obviously, you see, if you, as I had mentioned earlier, the two issues which really gave not a very good name to the BJP is the inflation and the unemployment. Professor Arun Kumar also mentioned this when he made his presentation. So, to that extent, what is to be done to ensure that employment really comes up, especially in labor-intensive manufacturing, and that too in areas where is surplus labor, and what conditions to be created to ensure that that kind of manufacturing comes up, and how to make the private capex really put on ground, what all things have to be done to ensure that. These are some things which the government will have to work on. So that will cost some kind of money. Second, as far as the MSMEs and those kind of sectors are concerned, household sectors are concerned, the capital has been really destroyed thanks to demonetization and the COVID. Now, how to repair that? How to ensure that the capex to those people are done and given to them in such a way that there is less collateralization there, and the institutional mechanism works smoothly to get that onto these people for capital creation is another area which I think the government will have to really work on. So if these 2 points are really going to be important for them to work on, and then this will certainly cost money to that extent, some amount of a shift away from certain existing programs can take place. But we have to wait and watch as to what the allies are going to, what will be their way of looking at the entire, governance model as well as on priorities for economic implementation. So that will depend on ultimately on what that synthesis takes place. That's something we'll have to wait and watch.
Rajeev, look at the one of the key alliance members in the NDA, the TDP, Chandrababu Naidu, the original IT man of India, someone who is credited with bringing IT to the masses and especially in governance, in administration. He is in a pole position in the state, and he also is in a very good position as far as the NDA alliance is concerned. And incidentally, Rajeev, all indices were down, very deep cuts, including, for example, the PSU Bank Index today. But the only two that were marginally positive in the green was the Nifty IT Index and the FMCG Index. What do you sense? What kind of governance policy priorities will the TDP as part of the NDA likely push at the center?
So Siddharth, the TDP has previously been in alliance with the BJP governments. Even 25 years ago, they were part of the alliance. They were part of the alliance in the first Modi government after 2014. So this is not a new entrant into the NDA fold. And I don't think the TDP is a party which is, for example, against many of the capital expenditure plans or economic reform plans that the BJP has. I think the same applies for JDU. So for them to be a part of this government as coalition partners, what will they sort of not want to do? That's why I said I don't see too many differences coming to the fore. One area that could see some degree of dialing back by the government is on privatization of PSU companies. So there could be some pushback from parties like JDU. And maybe the government will slow pedal that or put that on the back burner. But aside from areas like that, I don't see too many changes happening, like I said.
Professor,
I think there is excessive degree of contrast being made and hype being generated that this will happen and that will happen. My view is that by and large, we will see continuity.
Okay. Professor Kumar, I come to you one last time on the show. Is the NDA and the two constituents, the large constituents, TDP and JDU, are they likely to behave like the left constituents were in the UPA, where Manmohan Singh and his agenda was curbed very significantly? Can we draw those parallels here, or is this a wrong sort of comparison to consider?
No, I don't think it can be compared with the UPA, because Manmohan Singh was not a political person. He didn't have the same authority in the UPA that Mr. Modi has in the NDA. So I don't think that's the right comparison. But what will happen is that the core agenda of the BJP, that I think will have to be modified. For instance, you were talking about capex and Bernstein's model. I don't think the capital expenditure will decline, but its focus may shift. it's focused on the capital intensive areas. That doesn't generate much employment directly. It will probably shift towards education, health, towards the rural employment, where in real terms it has been cut in the last two budgets. So if that happens, then employment generation would be buoyant. And also that's why, what he's saying, that, the FMCG sector may not decline, because if consumer demand increases, FMCG will do well. So I think, the idea would be to generate demand at the lower level, where in the unorganized sector, 94% of the employment is there. If they have larger incomes, whether it be in agriculture or in the micro sector, then you'll have higher capacity utilization and the investment will be buoyant. The private sector, the corporate sector has the capital, it can invest, even if the government is not investing as much. So therefore, I think demand generation is the crucial thing, and I think the NDA government will go for that, and the India Alliance will also push for increased incomes at the lower level. Both of them will coincide, and I don't think that will be negative for the market. Market may see that it may not be directly getting concessions, but if demand rises, I think that will give it much more profit than concessions would give. So in that sense, I think the market should also welcome it.
All right, the markets today, first day as counting was happening, have been deeply concerned, and what is weighing very clearly on the markets and will probably and likely continue to happen is the BJP falling short of the 272 mark. I thank all my guests on this quick take on the macroeconomic impact of the verdict 2024. We'll come back with much more over the course of the evening. Do stay tuned in. Time for a short break. I'll be back with you in just a bit.
Joining me now is Mr. Atul Suri. He's the CEO of Marathon Trends, and